Hello folks, welcome to the channel. If this is your first time here, I don't usually present from inside a cave, but I climbed in here specifically for you folks in honor of today's movie, The Descent. Doesn't that rock? And if that makes you feel like hitting the like button or subscribing to the channel because you haven't already, you go right ahead. Or maybe you're totally bored with this kind of thing because I know a lot of the other movie review channels go to the trouble of climbing inside of caves to present the... I'll explain that in a minute. The Descent's a bit of an anomaly for me. Sometimes the word anomaly's a bit of an anomaly to me. Some people consider it Neil Marshall's most acclaimed movie. It's widely praised for its intense atmosphere and strong performances. It even won the Saturn Award for Best Horror. I've watched it a few times with a few different groups of my friends, and I really want to like it because a lot of my friends like it. But every time I get to a certain point in the movie, things seem to fall apart for me, and I inevitably end up annoying all of my friends with my sarcastic commentary. Sarcasm is bad. So today, in the name of self-improvement, I have hooked myself up to an AI machine that'll send a tiny jolt of electricity through my big toe anytime it senses sarcasm in my language. Allow me to demonstrate. Elective cosmetic surgery made Mickey Rourke look sophisticated and distinguished. So who knows, folks, maybe I will end up a more enlightened person by the end of this movie. Let's go find out.
The Descent's a 2005 UK horror movie directed by Neil Marshall, who also wrote the screenplay. Marshall got a lot of his inspiration from literally exploring caves, as well as classic horror movies like Deliverance and The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Movie opens with a group of vivacious, dynamic young females doing some whitewater rafting.
Kindly indulge me a moment for a public service announcement. I've been told lots and lots of times The Descent is about girl power. There's no shortage of articles and reviews declaring this. I even read an article that suggested this movie redefined women in horror movies. And while I don't do politics on this channel, given the sorry state of traditional relationships in 2023, I do feel the need to point something out.
The director put these entertaining scenes at the start of the movie to show us how active and independent these fun-loving girls really are. And in real life, each of the actresses went through rigorous physical training to prepare for the demanding roles. And if you slow the opening scenes down, you can see the actual actresses are in the raft.
Well, during the easy bits, that is.
When the water speeds up and things get dangerous, you'll find this friggin' guy guiding them expertly through the perilous, erratic waters.
Feminism's great, and all I'm saying is, at the end of the day, boys and girls still need each other.
When the rafting's done, we meet Sarah, played by Shauna McDonald, and Sarah's friend Juno, played by Natalie Mendoza. The movie's set in the Appalachian Mountains, but it was actually filmed in the UK, specifically in Scotland. As you can probably tell from the fact there's no sunlight at any point in this movie. Director Neil Marshall makes it abundantly clear something's going on between Juno and Sarah's husband. Then on the drive home, Sarah sets the story in motion when she suffers a devastating personal tragedy.
Well, on the surface, it's definitely tragic, but we do already know her husband was an adulterous snake. Maybe her daughter wasn't perfect either. Let's take a closer look. I rest my case.
Sarah wakes up sometime after the accident in a hospital jam-packed with people who couldn't care less about somebody in the iron clutches of debilitating grief. Then Juno cries without any tears, and we don't like her, folks. And if you do like her after what we've seen of her so far, you're probably upset about my feminism joke earlier, and I'm guessing that probably makes you a really fun person to have.
I forgot about that. I will do better.
A year later, and Sarah reconnects with her thrill-seeking sisters in the not-really Appalachian Mountains. To make the UK look more American, they put bullet holes in everything and play banjo music on the radio.
Big shout out to all my American friends. Is this not a lovely portrayal of your fine country? Funny thing is, depending on where you are in America,
But there's still no sunshine. When they arrive at the cabin, Juno's there. So's Beth, played by Alex Reed, and Rebecca's played by Saskia Mulder. Mayana Buring plays Sam, and Nora Jane Noon plays Holly. The all-female cast does create a very interesting dynamic, given the adventure they're about to embark on isn't exactly steel magnolias. The ladies head to bed early to get a jump on the next day, and we are presented with a very rare animal in horror movie terms.
Everybody knows jump scares are a contentious element of modern horror movies. They're used with monotonous regularity by some directors, and they're rarely done properly. And yes, I'm talking to you, James Wan, you little millionaire.
But when they are done well, they prime your mind and your nervous system for what's about to come.
So what makes a good jump scare? I'm glad you asked.
Several elements combine to make a good jump scare. There's timing and build-up, sound design, visual contrast, misdirection, and emotional investment.
And that's why a random cat jumping into the frame has no more a lasting effect than a CGI colony of bats. Bats! But The Descent's early jump scare really does work, and here's why.
The timing's random. Everything's naturally quiet because they're all sleeping. The sleepy aesthetic makes us feel relaxed. We're misdirected because it looks like the poor girl can't sleep, and we're emotionally involved because we know why she can't sleep. And the jump scare itself works perfectly because it points directly to all of these things in a short, potent burst. The group eventually hits the road and things are immediately tense. Sarah's understandably fragile, and to add to that, she's suspicious Juno had a fling with her husband before he passed away.
Did I actually just say before he passed away?
They eventually arrive at the gaping wet gray hole in the not Appalachian Mountains, and each of the girls enter one at a time, and if you didn't like Juno already, she reprimands Holly like a 6-year-old child for descending too quickly. Then Sarah's set upon by an unexpected gang of CGI bats.
See, they don't bother me at all. Boys are good like that.
When Holly makes an innocent joke about the bats, she's told off by Beth. And now we're starting to see the real differences with an all-female cast. Very appealing, isn't it? Ouch!
Sarah notices a set of foreshadowing red claw marks at the foot of the hole, and without an inch of sarcasm, they pulled me right out of the narrative, and we're only a few minutes into the movie.
Just how does one go about clawing into a rock, even with fake nails? And wouldn't the blood have lost its crimson color a really long time ago? And why didn't she point it out to anybody? She could have literally saved all their lives just by mentioning it. So they gets to going, and when Sam asks which way they're headed, Juno, the self-appointed guide and girl in charge, tells her the only way forward is down through the pipe.
Now remember this seemingly innocuous remark for later on, as I suspect I might be using
A few minutes later, and they're deep inside the cavernous belly of the Not Appalachians, and it's obvious the production design team put a lot of work into meticulously recreating the dark and claustrophobic environment of a cave system. To achieve the look, they designed sets in England's Pinewood Studios, and they constructed the caves using over 10,000 tons of rock and polystyrene and plaster.
If you're a stickler for detail, on closer inspection, these rocks might be the cleanest, smoothest, fakest looking things on the planet, but again, that is only important if details matter to you. They certainly don't matter to me. I'm fine with all of this. It's not like they have to...
Sarah gets itchy feet, so she heads off to scout out a way forward. When she finds one, it's tiny and soaking wet, and exactly the type of passage experienced cavers would completely avoid. But they dive into it anyways because it's a movie, and that's totally okay. Eventually, Sarah gets stuck. Fortunately for her, Beth's there with a pep talk to help her through it, and to help the audience understand that caves are now a metaphor for Sarah's life struggles. So now we know Sarah's our main character, and if she can make it out of this movie alive, she'll have overcome her trauma and successfully completed a positive character arc. Then right after Beth's pep talk, half the cave falls in and traps them. That's when we learn the cave's a new, totally uncharted system. That means it's never been discovered or mapped out before. So Juno lied to everybody about where she was taking them. And yet, she knew exactly where they were going when they first arrived.
And that is called a plot hole. And from this point forward, this movie's about escaping and surviving. And for fans of the movie, this is the point when the excitement really starts ramping up. But for people who aren't fans, this tends to be the point it starts losing its viewers and I start saying sarcastic things.
The girls come across a deep chasm that they have to traverse, and they make it. Then they climb through another narrow tunnel until they find a cave drawing that tells them there's a second entrance. And who could have drawn such a thing? I'm not sure. It's probably naturally occurred. Then they think they see daylight, so Holly, the impulsive one, shoots off ahead because that's what she's like, remember? Juno told her off for it earlier? And she falls down a hole. When she lands at the bottom of it, she says she thinks she possibly hurt her leg. And maybe she's not sure because she's still drunk from the night before, because her tibia is poking through her pants.
So they fix her leg by pushing the bone back through her khakis and under her skin again. I imagine it. I hadn't even said anything yet. Can this thing pick up on flared nostrils?
While the portable MASH unit's plodding away in the dark on the world's toughest human being, Sarah sees this thing, and of course nobody believes her because she's traumatized. So they head onwards and downwards over impossible terrain in the soaking wet darkness with a member of their crew on one leg in unfathomable pain. After nearly an hour being inside the place, they happen upon an area strewn with bones. And then this happens.
The creatures in this movie are known as crawlers. They're a combination of CGI and practical effects. But for this review, we're calling them chuds. Sounds cooler, it's an amazingly bad movie, and it is way more fun to say. Try it yourself. Chuds. Chuds!
The chud sinks his teeth into Holly's neck, and then it goes all WrestleMania for a few minutes while Juno kills the feral, ravenous, cave-dwelling humanoids who've evolved over thousands of years to live in this inhospitable environment with her ice axe.
Which is an unusual choice of weapon, given they're meant to be used in snowy, frozen environments. I mean, it's not like you're gonna hack into solid rock. That one was a fact.
Then she swings around and accidentally kills Beth with the same misplaced tool. Then they spend the next few minutes hiding quietly from the chuds in the environment the chuds are adapted to thrive in. And as there's no sun inside a mountain, or outside as they're in Scotland, the chuds are all blind, which you'd think would mean their hearing and sense of smell and touch would be highly adapted to compensate for. In fact, at one point, this idea is even supported.
They're totally blind, and judging from what we've seen, I'd say they use sound to hunt with.
This chud hovers directly over Sarah for ages, but as long as she doesn't move, it can't find her. But then Juno shouts out from a different cave and it hears her immediately. So they have highly sensitive hearing, but they can't hear living, breathing, panicking, shaking female human beings inches away from them. Nor can they smell them, apparently. But then Sam tosses her sports watch and a chud goes right to it and touches it with its nose, meaning it has a heightened sense of hearing and smell. But when they're near the girls, for whatever reason, they're essentially senseless, even though they've evolved in here, presumably for thousands of years, because that's how evolution works. At least in male-driven movies it is.
Sorry, that one was offside. 100%. Gonna give myself an extra one for that.
With the assistance of a night vision camera, Sarah finds another spot filled up with bones and dead dogs, and it's also blood red. Given there's no airflow in there, it must have smelled like the deepest pits of hell. But these girls are tough, so they don't even gag, which in one way is... that one tickled a bit. Eventually, Juno, Sam, and Rebecca end up in one place while Sarah's isolated in another. And Sarah finds Beth near death's door, and Beth asks her to end her, which she does with a big old rock. And then a chud gets her, except Sarah's just gone full Sarah Connor. And I mean the good Sarah Connor, not that other one. So she kills the chud, and then she ends up in a giant vat of cranberry sauce, but the cranberry sauce also has a chud in it, so she kills it too. Then she realizes another chud's coming, so she sits perfectly still, and the chud literally stands on her. And I suppose this means they've evolved beyond being able to sense warm and cold too, because Sarah's alive, and that would mean she's body temperature, which is widely accepted as being warmer than room temperature, even inside a cave. Now it's buzzing science. Meanwhile, Sam and Rebecca get plucked one at a time. When Rebecca goes, she gets eaten like a ribeye. And that leaves Sarah and her arch nemesis Juno as the last two standing. And when they end up back together again, Sarah's looking very transformed by the story's events. So they rip off the music from The Thing, and the pair make their way towards the exit. But they don't get far before an epic battle kicks off and the two traumatized, dehydrated, worn-out, nutrient-depleted size 4 girls decimate a cave full of starving, angry, 4% body fat, wild animal chuds as if they were a basket full of baby raccoons. Then Sarah and Juno have their final face-off, and Sarah lets Juno know she knows about the affair by driving her ice axe through her knee, and she leaves her behind for the chuds. The ending of the movie will vary depending on your whereabouts. The US and international versions feature an ambiguous ending where Sarah escapes the cave only to hallucinate Juno sitting next to her in the car. The UK version, however, concludes with Sarah still trapped in the cave, hallucinating everything's okay. Her husband's nowhere to be seen, but her daughter's there with her. And that is the end of The Descent.
If you're a fan of this movie, I am happy for you, and I am not trying to put down your film. And I recognize I'm in the minority when I say its premise is unimaginative and the plot is stuffed full of creature and survival tropes. I also know a lot of people aren't going to agree when I suggest a lot of those characters deserve to die in there because they made some seriously stupid decisions. But I have to say all these things because I've gotta be me. And if you disagree with what I think, feel free to say so down in the comments. And finally, if you've seen the sequel, I would love to know your thoughts on that one too. I've seen it, and I thought it was wonderful. Fine. I saw it. I hated it. I thought it was shit. Until next time, folks. It's me, Johnny, from that video you just loved, and I know you loved it because you're still here, and seeing as you are still here, you should probably go down there and smash me in the face to subscribe, and seeing as you just smashed me in the face, you should probably do something nice to make up for it, like maybe watching this next video. Do it!